WTPN proudly presents another edition of the Liberty Hour, and this, of course, is being broadcast live here on TalkShoe.com. My name is Robbie DeMarco, and we have a very big show for everybody out there. Here's for Ron Paul. But guys, shed some light for our listening audience on what the announcement has to do with and the impact it will have on the Ron Paul campaign.
Okay, this is Richard Gilbert. I can tell you that a decision has been made by Lawyers for Ron Paul to take over the Ron Paul campaign without the permission of the Ron Paul campaign. It is the People's Mutiny. We are forming an executive committee within the Lawyers for Ron Paul group, and we will no longer tolerate negotiations for the surrender of the campaign in exchange for some concession on one or more planks that we find to be meaningless in a platform. And so I'm going to go around the nation and publicly announce that the Lawyers for Ron Paul group and its executive committee, on behalf of the volunteers of Ron Paul, are from now on formally running the Ron Paul campaign. We are in it to win it and nothing less. We are going to strip Romney of all of his delegates, and Ron Paul will be put in nomination and win the nomination, and that is our goal, and nothing less than that. And that's what our mission is.
You guys are aware of a gentleman by the name of Ben Swan. He has a very big following through Facebook. He's a local reporter. He is a very solid journalist, and I say journalist because there are very few journalists out there, respectable journalists anymore, and he tells it like it is. And he has been trying to explain the delegate process to people over and over and over again as everything has been moving along in the Ron Paul campaign and in the GOP campaign in general. As the mainstream media tells the wrong story, Ben Swan continues to get it right. And guys, this is just amazing to me that there are rules by which no delegates can be bound. Now, David, if you can weigh in on this, what actually spurred? First of all, what spurred on this lawsuit?
Sure. Anybody that has been following the story of the 2012 primary season needs to kind of go back in your mind's eye to the Iowa caucuses. And what was set up at that time as a storyline in which we began to see immediately some things happening that seemed to indicate that there was foul play going on. For instance, everyone knows now that's got any ear to the ground who Edward True is and how he, as a lone voter in a precinct, noticed a discrepancy of 22 votes to 2 votes, or a difference of 20 votes in what was recorded in his precinct for Romney. And he announced this on CNN. CNN gave him some time, and out of that, it actually caused a shakeup in the final results of the election because Romney didn't have a 20-point margin over Santorum, and so in the course of a day or two after Romney was announced the winner, Santorum was the winner. And then we move on to New Hampshire, and what we begin to see is a pattern of what seems to be election fraud types of issues occurring, and continuing into South Carolina and other states into the South, and then we get into other primaries and caucuses into other parts of the country. Some extremely crazy things begin to happen in places like Missouri and Arizona. And so what we're seeing is a significant amount of misconduct, fraudulent situations seem to be appearing in YouTube videos on the internet and blogs, and there's this incredible amount of brouhaha, if I might call it that, going on, and predominantly being brought to light by the Ron Paul campaign. And so we have this kind of a situation happening, and we're finding that there's coming from the delegates and the alternate delegates as they're having their first they're having their district conventions, and then they're having state conventions. We're hearing all kinds of stories, all kinds of situations being brought to light of, misconduct coming out of the Republican Party on various levels that just seems to be unexplainable, and a lot of frustration coming from a lot of voters and delegates and so on. And we at Lawyers for Ron Paul, we're doing, we're watching all this, and we're also doing research on, what can we do to assist these people. The predominant statement being made out there is that the Republican National Committee is a club, and they can do whatever they want because they're a private club. And so even though these things are happening, there's really nothing you can do about it. That's pretty much the story that we're hearing everywhere. However, it so happens that one of our staff members, a really great guy who has been on your show many times, Jerry Davis, and unbeknownst to us, simultaneously, a gentleman by the name of Richard Gilbert have been doing research on the federal statutes and find that in Title 42, USC, sections 1971 to 1974, there are some voting rights laws, and they are connected to the primaries and the elections in which you're voting for President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, a United States Senator or House of Representatives member, and other types of would be federal offices. And we're finding that there are actually very easy to follow, easy to read, easy to understand statutes having to do with the fact that you cannot commit certain types of actions that are happening all through this primary. And so what we've done is we've gone and connected with some of the delegates after finding this. Well, what happened was we had this organization we put up on Facebook called Lawyers for Ron Paul, and as we announced this information, we are getting bombarded with people wanting to be members of Lawyers for Ron Paul, and in the course of a day, literally hundreds of people are signing up. And so we know we hit a nerve. And out of that, we realized that we had an opportunity to assist these frustrated delegates all over the country in being able to finally, once and for all, achieve some remedy to their problem on this issue of what appears to be election fraud violations. And so that's pretty much in a nutshell. And I've given my version of how this has played out, and I'm sure others have other versions. But I think that gives a pretty good sense. And I know Richard will embellish on it a bit here now in terms of what it means as we're now taking the new direction that we're proposing.
Yes. Unfortunately, the people who are working for the Ron Paul campaign, Mr. Benton especially, signed a letter indicating he gave permission for the RNC and the Romney campaign to violate Rule 11, which is a rule that says the Republican National Committee may not aid any candidate until they become the nominee. But in April, Mr. Benton signs an agreement with the RNC, allowing the RNC to aid Governor Romney, who we all know the RNC Mr. Priebus have been aiding since around Thanksgiving. This act by the campaign manager is simply unacceptable. But that is not the reason that we have decided to take over the campaign, because that happened in April.
Yes.
What has happened since is that we have Doug Weed is a very, very brilliant man, someone that we highly respect, someone who we want to come and work with us. We want him to join us.
Yes.
But he just recently did a Facebook conference where he indicated that Ron Paul cannot win. He indicated that our case will not be heard by a court. The court has no interest in our case. He indicated that it is extremely doubtful that Ron Paul will even be allowed to speak at the Republican National Convention, or that Ron Paul's name will even be put in nomination. And the campaign is not doing anything about this, except to negotiate with the Romney campaign about trying to get some points of interest into a plank or two. Now, we all know how worthless a plank is. No candidate ever runs on a convention plank. You never, after the convention's over, you never hear about the planks. I mean, this is just worthless nonsense. So
Richard, can I interrupt you just for a second? Can you explain to the audience who's out there? I mean, we have a lot of astute listeners, but for those who are not aware, when you say running for a plank, what does that mean in terms of what Doug Weed is referencing?
Okay. Instead of using the word plank, which is what it's called, well, let's just call it a position. They're attempting to negotiate for the convention to take certain positions that are, of course, hallmarks of Ron Paul's career, such as dealing with the Fed, for example.
Okay.
Ron Paul wants to ask that, but the negotiation is to try and get Romney to some type of an audit of the Fed. We cannot allow the Ron Paul legacy or the Ron Paul campaign to be put into a position where we are just negotiating for a position that the Fed will be audited. As vague as that is, and we all know how Mr. Romney is, because those words. Well, he agrees with whatever he said, whatever it is, although he doesn't remember it. I mean, that's the value of negotiating with Mr. Romney. Okay. So we're not going to let the campaign be put in that